meet the Mets. Step right up and greet the Mets. Bring your kiddies, bring your wife. Guaranteed to have the time of your life, because the Mets are really socking the ball, knocking those home runs over the wall. East side, west side, everybody's coming down to meet the Mets, Mets of New York town. Oh, the butcher and the baker and the people on the streets, where do they go? To meet the Mets! Oh, they're hollering and cheering and they're jumping in their seats. Where do they go? To meet the Mets! All the fans are true to the orange and blue, so hurry up and come on down, 'cause we got ourselves a ball club, the Mets of New York town. Give 'em a yell! Give 'em a hand! And let 'em know you're rooting in the stand. Come on and meet the Mets. Meet the Mets. Step right up and greet the Mets. Bring your kiddies, bring your wife. Guaranteed to have the time of your life, because the Mets are really socking the ball, knocking those home runs over the wall. East side, west side, everybody's coming down to meet the Mets, Mets of New York town, of New York town.
And we are live. What is up, Mets and baseball fans? Thanks so much to everyone chiming into the stream, especially if you're coming over from my in-game stream. What a crazy game this one was for our New York Mets, but for our second post-game stream of the season, we have a lot of great special guests. So first of all, we have ourselves, GiraffeNeckMarc. You guys know Mark by now, and his co-host for the Mets'd Up Podcast, and James Schiano. And then we also have Joe DeMayo, writer for SNY, and also the co-host with Connor Rogers from Bleacher Report for the That's So Mets podcast. So guys, how are you all doing tonight? How are you feeling? This has to feel good. I'm so happy that the Mets did not score no runs like they did last time I had my post game with Joe. We had nothing to talk about for the short time we were live.
2 thumbs up.
Yeah, 2 thumbs up as well. It's thank God we won that game. Oh my God.
Yeah. A win is a win. It wasn't exactly pretty, but they pulled it out, and ultimately that's what matters. There's no such thing as a bad win. I know a lot of times you see close wins. People on Twitter are complaining about different things about the game even after a win. You take wins as they come. You're going to have wins that maybe don't look the best. You'll have losses where you may have played well but still lost the game. So take the wins as they come.
Ronnie had a great comment during the 9th inning. He said, if you want to be a good team and you want to sustain win streaks, you have to beat some closers. And it was pretty cool to see the Mets be the closer for the first time.
How the hell is that guy a closer?
That's a good question.
In the year of 2021, how is a dude who just throws 77, 78 mile an hour breaking balls over and over and over a closer? But
it's the same reason Adam Pluko is a setup man.
Me and James have a thing that we say on the podcast where it's like pitchers we could hit. We have a list of them. Chase Anderson's on there. I'm putting Cesar Valdez on there. I don't care 100%. If he throws 75 mile an hour curveball slide or whatever it is. Like, he is literally throwing BP, and we saw that in the last inning.
Oh, yeah. No, I think what really blew my mind was you have a guy coming in that really tops out at 77, has a lot of movement on his pitches, but for a guy of Dom Smith, and as we all know, he struggled mightily in the first month of the season and has kind of at points in his career with the breaking ball to get that, pardon me, not the walk-off, but at least get the run to continue things going. And then Patrick Mazeika. Can we just take a minute to talk about Patrick Mazeika? We'll get right into like everything there is to know about this game. My blood is still pumping. Shout out to my bunny Gigi. I bring her in for the inning when it gets close. It's a rally rabbit we do, and she actually got the dub finally. First time out of like 10 games. So we are feeling good. But Patrick Mazeika, this guy now has 3 walk-offs in the past week or so, none of them with a hit. How do you make this up? I don't know. That's as Mets of a thing as possible. What are your guys' initial stances on that? Because that's just ridiculous in my mind.
I mean, the guy's just a straight-up folk hero. Cespedes Family Barbecue has the tweet of the night where he snapped a picture of Mazeika, and he's like, the Mets just pulled this guy out of the bushwick and said, you want to play? Like, watching him hit is kind of like watching like a pitcher who's really good at hitting at the plate, where he's just up there battling. He had like 4 or 5 foul balls that he just like squirted up the line before that. He's just just putting the bat in the ball. He's just does he say, "Did I do my homework and try to get a hit?" It's fun.
Well, even after the game, I think he's like, I was trying to hit that ball in the air, and it's like he grounded it right into the ground again. Like, whatever's working with Pat Mazeika, keep it going. I can't say I feel confident with him at the plate, but he hasn't let me down yet. So,
it's the one of the ugliest big league swings I've seen. A non-pitcher, like it does not look pretty. But hey, if he's getting the job done, and some credit to Jonathan VR too. I mean, VR has been awesome for this team, obviously with JD Davis and Guillorme down, but just like he does the little things like base running, like he's not going to steal 40 bags like he did a couple of years ago with the Orioles, but this dude is alert on the bases, high baseball IQ, aggressive, but not foolishly aggressive. Like he toes that line where he's not going to do something really stupid, but he's aggressive and smartly aggressive. So I think, that was big on him. He got that extra lead right at the last second and really took off on contact. So a big part of that was his awareness, at third base to be able to get home and beat that throw. Because the infield's in theory, you should be a dead duck every single time, a grounder when the infield's in.
Yeah, he's got some balls. I texted Mark that immediately after the game. That just on a ball that was like, not only was smoked, but Mazeika hit it a little bit. Like that was a bang play at the plate. You have to have some cojones to just dive headfirst in there, like with the game on the line. VR absolutely has those.
And that was a textbook slide too. And that's what I love about VR. Going into the season, a lot of people were griping about what are the point of the Jonathan VR and the Pilar? What are these signings? What do they mean? Well, it's clearly you're adding depth. When you have guys that would easily be starters on half the teams in the league as your bench guys, that's a good problem, especially with all the injuries the Mets have been enduring the past couple of weeks. You want those guys. If it wasn't for our bench, we would not be even at 500, I would imagine. Between Pilar and VR, they've been so clutch. And it's funny how VR ends up being the hero in the end, because you could gripe on him. He had his third error today and really the past week. He has not looked necessarily the best at third. He's clearly a shortstop. We all know the story there. So for him to come back having some great base running on the pass, ultimately to get the winning run in the end, I think that's just bittersweet. And that's kind of what we can expect from the Mets going forward. Even if they don't necessarily have the most stellar defense, they do have some guys that can be clutch on the base pass when they need it most. So massive win for the Mets tonight off of what originally looked like a John Means only pitching 6 innings, 74 pitches, I believe. They take him out because they knew that they were in a good position. And unfortunately, the Orioles got the lead there once Means was out. So smart on them and not smart on the Mets. So I also want to know your guys' quick stance on the Stroman situation, because Stroh was rolling only 90 pitches in. At first, it made sense for Rojas, or you're bringing in Aaron Loop against what's going to be a left-hand hitter. But no, they switch it to a right-hand hitter. First pitch, Loop throws, and it's going to be a beautiful sac fly. A nice snag by Conforto again, who's been literally a stud in right field the past, I would say, couple weeks at least for sure. And they end up bringing the run. So one by one, what's your stance on Stroh? I know he was very aggravated, and rightfully so, for getting pulled out at that situation.
Mark and I were actually arguing about this as it was going on. We were texting back and forth. I said I would, because for a fact that the hitters are gonna get the best matchup no matter what, because they can always adjust to the pitching change. So it was a guarantee that if you were bringing in the lefty and Loop, that DJ Stewart was going to be called back, and they were going to send up a righty off the bench. So my thinking there was I would rather have Marcus Stroman facing DJ Stewart than Aaron Loop facing whoever it was, like Pat Velica, who got the hit. So I think I would have left Stroman, and it all worked out in the end, I guess. He kept the damage to 1, which is still pretty good in that situation. But, yeah.
I liked Loop, obviously. I think also it gives you a little bit of insurance, too, of like when, let's say he doesn't get Velica out, or, the sac fly does happen, you get a lefty then against Cedric Mullins, which is a pretty favorable matchup there as well. And I don't know. I'm a big guy of like, stick to your plan, go with it. If you keep Stroman in there and DJ Stewart stays in and gets a big hit or hits a home run, which he has the potential to do, I feel like we're even more mad than necessarily just the sac fly from Velica, which I think Rojas made the right move. I think he played his cards the proper way.
I was good with it. I understood, like I might have kept Stroh in, but I didn't think it was a big deal. I figured once it happened that Twitter would blow up and it would be a huge deal that Rojas made a bad call. But Stroh was giving up some hard contact to end the last inning, and he gave up hard contact for the 2 hits that he gave up in that inning. So to me, there was logic behind it. I thought Rojas managed it fine. Like I thought it was smart to intentionally walk the guy to get them to make a decision on Means, which was great. Get Means the hell out of the game. Yeah. That was good. And then from there, I understood it. You made the Orioles burn DJ Stewart in the case that the game would go on too. So they burned 2 bench players in the situation. And they gave up a run. He limited the damage, and what it comes down to is you can't score 0. So the decision wouldn't have mattered if the Mets didn't end up scoring 8 runs anyway. But to me, I was fine with it. I might have given Stroh a shot, so I definitely understand what James is saying. But I was fine. I didn't think the decision would have been wrong either way necessarily. It was just, this is the decision that he did, and it worked out enough to get the win.
Yeah, it ultimately worked out, which is all that matters. And Stroh looked like good tonight, but he didn't really look great. Like, I felt like last start out, he looked great. Like, he was throwing tons of sliders. He was whipping them all day. Today was like, there was decent contact being made consistently. And in that spot, realistically, you needed a strikeout. So you probably do have a better shot of getting Aaron Loup to strike out the righty than Stroman striking out a lefty, because Stroman just simply refuses to throw his slider against lefties for whatever reasons unbeknownst to me. So, yeah, I see what you guys are saying.
Yeah, and that's a great point, too, because when it initially happened, my stance was it made sense from Rojas. I'm like, everyone's going to gripe at it. If the Mets lose this game 1-0, it's all going to be on Rojas. We're not going to talk about all the positives he has done with the team, especially with bullpen management this season. Like, let's give credit where credit's due. The bullpen would not be where it is right now if it wasn't for Rojas's management to an extent, and Jeremy Hefner. I think Hefner's been great with the pitching as well. So those are heavy factors, but if the Mets lose this game off that one decision, you're going to pin it on Rojas. But it could be very contradictory, too, because you have to view it, in my mind, the same as, all right, say the Mets lost a game 1-0 with DeGrom on the mound, but he gives up 1 run. Are you blaming Jacob DeGrom in that situation? Of course not. So I think you should view things the same exact way with Rojas. So I understand it. It wasn't a little unfortunate the run happened, but again, it didn't matter too much because the Mets still won this one in the end. And just talk about clutch. So the runners in scoring position continues to be a struggle with this team. They got 10 hits, however, and what I did like to see earlier in the game, at least, was Jeff McNeil looked like he was really starting to break out lefty on lefty. Of course, the one guy that is actually looking like means kryptonite this season, he ends up getting out by pushing second. I don't know why he was pushing second on that. That was a clear single. He looked like he might have rubbed up his hammy a little bit after a review. It seems like he's just going to be out probably, I would assume, day-to-day. Hopefully he's going to avoid the IL as he was just dealing with some tightness. It looks like he just stressed something out. But overall, McNeil, second base, that was fantastic. In the middle infield overall, Lindor had a strong game as well for the Mets. And also Jose Peraza, first at bat of the game, or second, he gets a single. So second base did really well against John Means. And it was just fantastic to see this Mets team being clutch when they need them to be clutch. Okay, if we look at the Diamondback series, the momentum, I know, Mark, you were at the first game of that series. That was insane to begin with all the, the raccoon. We're not even going to drag that out, but just an insane ordeal. See Lindor step up, and these guys actually getting timely hitting. I don't care how many hits you get at the end of the day, as long as you get the hits when they matter most. That's been the story with this team. So it's awfully refreshing to see them at least, whether it's a hit, a walk, or in this case, a Mazika walk-off where you don't even have to either of the two things to get the win. So what is your stances individually, guys, on just the overall performance by the Mets tonight, with at least being more timely in the hitting when it matters and taking advantage of teams that, I get it, the Orioles had a really strong pitching going in this game. Means is one of the better pitchers in baseball right now as southpaw. The Mets don't see a lot of them from a starting pitching standpoint this season. But for them to at least jump on this and a series that realistically they should win at the end of the day, it feels bittersweet knowing that they at least got game 1 of game 2.
I mean, like, for me, it was good to see McNeil hitting, because that was like kind of the McNeil that we've been a little bit used to. Short swing, going up the middle, taking it where the ball's been pitched. And of course he gets hurt, but I'm guessing he's probably just going to sit tomorrow with the off day Thursday, let him get back, let him be good. And maybe he's available off the bench if they need a pinch hit bat. But really the at-bats to me that stuck out was Michael Conforto's, because against John Means, who's been a tough lefty this year, he hit 2 balls that I thought were absolutely roped. I thought the first one was gone. I can't believe that ball.
Gone.
I can't believe that ball stayed in the park. I put like a tweet out about, like, I think batters are 113 for 118 with 81 homers on a ball that is similarly hit to Michael Conforto's. I hate the deadened ball so much, but his at-bats and his swings looked really good, got big hits for us, and even Dom coming in at the end. Like, the guys who we've been seeing are struggling a little bit for the most part that are at the middle of our order seem to kind of be putting the ball in play a little bit more consistently and starting to get some hard contact, which that's the biggest takeaway for this game for me.
Yeah, for sure. Especially seeing Conforto just hit a couple ropes off of one of the tougher lefties in baseball right now is incredibly, I don't know, it makes me feel very positive. I went back, because I figure we end up talking about Conforto. Since that Phillies series that he hit the home run on Saturday, since that Friday, April 30th, Conforto in 51 plate appearances has 8 RBIs, 6 runs scored, 11 walks, and 6 strikeouts, including that big home run this Saturday night to beat the Phillies. That's good for a 152 WRC plus. Like, this guy has completely put the early season struggles behind him, and he is on his way again to having another very, very, very strong season, and it's great to see.
Yeah, totally agree. You're seeing more out of the guys that you expected to hit. And that's what it comes down to, is the guys that you expect to hit are the ones that, you know, it seems obvious to say, but these are the ones that you need to rely on. And somehow the Mets have managed to have basically all of them, except for Pete, struggle for the entirety of the season. So it seems like Lindor's coming on a little bit. Mcneil was turning around. He's got the cramps or whatever they're calling it now. And hopefully, like Mark said, he's back in a couple days. Dom, I feel it's weird. He doesn't put up the stats, but I feel like every time he comes up, this is going to be the at-bat where he breaks out of it.
Yeah.
Like, he's not a guy that he comes up and I'm like, oh, this guy's struggling. I don't think this is going to work. Like, when he came up, I was like, Dom's about to tie this game.
I was excited.
Yeah. And lo and behold, he did. So I think you see the order stepping up. And, you know, I give credit to the front office for bringing in veterans like Pilar and VR and, you know, having Jose Peraza as like AAA depth. They're really in a position now that, you know, you're not seeing Eric Campbell and Aaron Altair and John Mayberry Jr.
Thank God.
They've made like significantly better additions for the bench. And I know obviously you want your everyday guys out there, but you're going to have injuries. The Mets happen to have quite a few at once, but you're going to have injuries and guys need days off. And, you know, having guys like this, that when you put them in the lineup, it's not like, oh, damn, Kevin Pillar's in the lineup. That's an 0 for 4. This guy's just taking up a spot.
Yeah.
The next guy we see come up is probably going to be Brandon Drury. He was that's another major league depth piece. That was a very shrewd move by this front office, where if McNeil does require an IL stint, which we hope isn't true, that's still another guy who's competent, who's going to be in this lineup, which is really good for the team.
It's interesting you say that because I want to expand on Conforto. I'm going to do that in a second, but you have to wonder, at least for tomorrow's game, are they going to do any call-ups, especially with Almora out? Could they maybe bring up Khalil Lee? Because he's been a guy that's been rumored for a while now. Is he going to be brought in for outfield depth? I think that's maybe something we could see tomorrow, at least coming off the bench. And yeah, you're right. If McNeil is out on the 10-day IL, which I pray is not the case, then you have to bring in Brandon Drury. And it's going to be really interesting to see what he can do, because you're not going to expect much at all. But at least another guy that is competent at the MLB level is far better than some other choices that you would get right now coming off your bench comparing to other teams. But before we go further, I just want to add about Conforto. So if you guys don't know, Michael Conforto is my favorite player on the team. Always has been, kind of always will be type thing. I've loved him since he got called up, and sweetest swing in baseball. And he had a terrible start this season, as we know. Really only the first 10 games, though, really. And then he started to break out slowly but surely. And now look at what he did tonight. That surely would have been a home run. I'm very much an advocate where I think the dead end ball is hurting the Mets, not more than any other team, but the Mets are a home run team. They've been for the past couple of years now for sure. And you're seeing a lot of balls earlier in the season that should be flying out. They're just dropping short on the warning track by far, or maybe even shorter than that when it shouldn't be the case, when no win, nothing. So Conforto having a great game against John Means, so lefty and lefty. And what was the narrative about Conforto for the longest time when he first came in the league is that he was only a one-dimensional hitter. He could only hit righties. He could not hit lefties. Collins would keep him out of the games, simply couldn't do a lefty on lefty matchup. It wouldn't happen. Now it's kind of the polar opposite, which I love, and that just shows you the growth of Conforto and why, in my mind, he is definitely a pivotal guy of this team long term. I think he deserves be in the core. I think he should have been extended already. I pray he doesn't go anywhere. But yeah, Michael Conforto, I'm the biggest fan you'll ever meet about him, but to see him thriving now and match up against John Means coming off of a no-hitter, I know that he didn't necessarily get hit after hit on him, but hard contact every single time, like you were saying, a sharp rope to the right side. I love to see that. So yeah, that's just kind of my stance on Michael. And to expand a little bit further now on this game. So the Mets, again, they had 10 hits to the Orioles 7. Both teams definitely struggled a bit with runners in scoring position. The Mets were 2 for 11, left 8 on base. Now, the frustrating thing is you're continuing to leave guys in scoring position. When is this going to end? When is this narrative going to change? But the upside, at least, is that the Mets are constantly getting on base. This is a team that, like we saw last year with the highest OPS in baseball, they may have struggled with bringing guys in, but they're surely getting on base, whether it's hits or whether it's simply getting walked. This team gets walked every single day, I feel like. Alonso didn't even have a good game. He had a terrible game, really, and he even had a hit in the series against the D-backs, but he had numerous runs scored because he's getting walked. At least up until this game, he's been taking pitches well. Same case with a lot of the other players on this team. So while this team is still slumping from an overall standpoint offensively, what is your stances on them with at least consistently getting on base? Every single night, I feel like this team always has a chance because they're always getting on.
Yeah, for sure. I think just taking a ton of walks like the Mets do really just raises your floor as an offensive team. I even saw a stat today on Twitter that since Hugh Quattlebaum took over, which is only like a week, which is the longest week in the history of Mets baseball,
Absolutely.
the team has almost doubled their walk rate, that's a material change in such a short period of time. And that's a decent sample size because using the entire team. Like, I love that this team takes a lot of walks. We have guys on base every single inning. Just law of averages. Eventually, we're going to get hot. These guys are going to come around to score. We've won 6 games in a row. Our offense hasn't even clicked. And we got no Jacob DeGrom. We got 5 innings of Jacob DeGrom in that stretch. Like, this team's floor is just going up and up and up by the day. And I love seeing it.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And by the way, the funniest quote I saw in regards to Quattlebaum is Conforto was like, Quattlebaum said that we're chasing too many balls, so we're just going to not do that now. That's all that they needed. They needed someone to say, stop chasing balls out of the zone. But no, for sure. Having guys on base and getting yourself, like you said, it raises the floor, having people in position to be driven in. There is a question you have to understand, they didn't drive in guys last year. Like you said, they were one of the top teams in OPS, but they weren't driving in runs. They were middle of the pack in runs scored. And they're struggling with runners in scoring position again this year. So you got to ask the question, what's the deal there? But ultimately, you put yourself in position, and now it's just getting your really good players to come through when they have to come through. But it's definitely peculiar how unsuccessful they've been with runners in scoring position, and it's not just this month. It's dating back to, obviously it's a shortened year last year, but it's been a struggle for essentially the same roster, right? I mean, add Lindor and McCann, but it's mainly the same roster.
Yeah, it feels like whenever we do come up with runners in scoring position, it's either a strikeout or an infield pop-up or a ground ball for a double play. And I'm so tired of seeing McCann ground out into double plays for what it seems like when we need him to step up every single time. I'm waiting for him to break out. I'm waiting for him to turn around, but it's just not coming right now.
It's not every single time he comes up, there's ducks on the pond without fail. And it makes the pitcher lead off more innings than not, which over time, that will really affect the way a team hits. You're basically giving up an inning when the pitcher leads off. McCann's OPS right now is under 500. That's a shocking number.
Yeah, he's been shockingly bad at the plate. Like, I didn't think he was going to OPS 8, whatever, like he did. Like, I wasn't expecting that. But I was like, if this guy could be a slightly above average hitter as a catcher and be competent behind the plate. And by the way, let's give him credit for behind the plate.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the pitching has been fantastic, and every single one of them is crediting McCann with his game plan. And videos that I've seen of like him talking to pitchers, he's like, tell me what you want to do. There's no ego here. I'm not trying to control things. Like, I'm working for you. I want to have you throw what works for you and what's going to make the team succeed. And obviously the arm behind the plate is something the Mets haven't had in a starting catcher for a bit. So he's ultimately a defensive catcher right now, and that's it. And hopefully he can get that OPS up and just be competent and not come up every time and be a ground ball double play. And, once the rest of the offense turns it around, you'll focus a little less on McCann's struggles, but it's just like, well, everybody's sucking and McCann is too. So what gives? And he's grounding into double plays in the most unopportune times. Like, when he came up and grounded that double play, I was just like, that was so predictable. And
dude, even in the last inning, it was like, you know what? I will take a strikeout here, which is what ended up happening.
Yeah,
for sure.
I was like, dude, just strike out. Like, don't even bother.
Don't put the ball on the ground.
That was the second biggest play of the whole inning, besides Dom's at bat, was McCann only making one out.
And by the way, I'm glad he didn't bunt and successfully bunt, because Dom wouldn't have batted. They would have intentionally walked him, and Mazika would have been coming up for the tie, and then he would have chopped a grounder for a double play instead of a chopping grounder for that. So McCann striking out oddly ended up being a very big moment in the game.
Okay, so let's just expand on James McCann a little bit. So I'm a really, really big James McCann fan, and I get slandered every single time I talk about him in all my streams. I got a lot of haters on McCann. And it's kind of funny because I feel like the narrative has shifted from one big offseason acquisition to the next. Now that Lindor is starting to break out, all right, the emphasis is all on McCann. It's not like the majority of this team is still slumping from an average standpoint, but there are things that are standing out with McCann and his production, and between the average striking out player gaining the double plays. And look, I don't know about you guys, but I never expected James McCann to come into Queens and be this absolute star like Mike Piazza 2.0 at the bat. That was never the case. right? This guy's going to be batting 250, 260, around 15 to 20 bombs, 60 RBIs. He's going to strike out a lot. That's been the kind of the trend throughout his career. But what you're getting with James McCann, and I think it's overlooked a lot, as you allude to, not just Joe, but I think many of you guys, is that he is a guy that's helping out the pitchers tremendously. You have to give credit where credit's due. Nito has been performing really strong in a small sample size, and that's great. But for the people out there that's saying that, oh, Nito definitely needs to be the number one, that's never going to happen because he's not on that big contract. We brought James in for a reason. And two, Nito hasn't shown it enough consistently for us to be like, all right, we're sold. He's going to be starting every 2 or 3 games or something. And McCann, what he's been doing with the framing, and something that I love about McCann is not just his personality. I think he's great. He's literally like a very spiritual guy. He's like, I felt like God really led me here to the Mets this offseason. I thought that was cool. But also the fact that he doesn't even have the cheat sheet on his wrist. He said, if I need to look at a cheat sheet for the player coming up, that means that there's something wrong. I'm not doing enough homework. I love that. This guy's analytically driven, but he also uses the eye test to his advantage. He hasn't been stellar behind the plate all the time. He's definitely had some flukes. We saw a couple catcher interferences the other night against the D-backs. Those things will randomly happen, but he has the arm, and I think his framing is a lot better than what people make him out to be. He was a top 10 framer in the short season last year, and coming off of being basically dead last year prior. So he's made a lot of improvements in a very short period of time as an overall player. So I think McCann, give him some leeway, if you will, because I do think he's going to be fine. But I understand it is highlighted right now because while the Mets are slumping with runners in scoring position, James McCann is sticking out like the biggest sore thumb by far. So I understand the arguments. I'm just saying James McCann, like Lindor, I think is going to be perfectly fine and ultimately help this team get where they want to be in the end.
Yeah, definitely. I don't disagree with that. I still think McCann's a very good player, and you can't taper down what he's done for this pitching staff. It's clear that there's a material change in the way the Mets have been pitching. A lot of that probably has to do with McCann, along with Hefner and Jeremy Accardo. But McCann he started 25 out of 30 games for the team this season.
Yep.
I don't think there's many catchers in all of baseball who should be playing over 80% of their team's games. That's not a winning strategy. It's not going to work over the full year. The most games he ever caught in a full season was 112. And that was the year in 2018 where he was non-tendered and had the 56 WRC plus for the year. He needs to be more of like a 70-30 guy, 65-35 guy with Nito. I agree. And Nito's good enough to shoulder some of that load. Like, this is fine. Like, we have another competent catcher. I don't want to say it's a good problem to have, but it's okay to delineate some of those guys' responsibilities a little bit.
Yeah, I totally agree. Getting Nito into more games, I think, will be beneficial for McCann, and then obviously it'll still be beneficial for the pitching staff because they love throwing the Nito too. They've been very open about that dating back to last year. I mean, people didn't want to throw to Wilson Ramos. They wanted Nito to be playing. So Nito's a good game caller, good framer. He has an arm too. So the Mets ultimately have a rock solid catching tandem. I wouldn't look at it as one of the best in the sport, but it's perfectly fine. They do what this team needs. Like, they have so many good offensive players. This offense is eventually, I have to imagine, going to produce at a big time level. And if you have one guy that's not so much offensively, but it's a catcher, and defensively, he's making your pitching staff better, making you have the number one bullpen in baseball, despite, I was talking about on my podcast every week, basically, it's Mets have to piecework this bullpen until Lugo gets back. Just try to figure it out and tough it out for a month or two. And they, knock on wood, they've been fantastic. Like, Trevor May's been unbelievable. Tonight, obviously, with Almora happening, like, May hasn't given up a run in however many appearances. I forget what it was, but he's been fantastic. Loop gave up his first run of the year the other day. Gazelman's bounced back. Familia's bounced back. Like, literally, there's been no one in the bullpen that's been a problem. Miguel Castro has found consistency. So not just good, but found consistency.
He's my man. I love Castro.
And I don't even need to mention Edwin Diaz. We know how I feel. So I'm not even going to bother. We know how good he is.
Yeah, no, that, like, the thing with McCann too is that
hearing Marco in person on Sunday was electric.
Oh, it's amazing in person. Yeah. I like when the stands are full and the Mets are playing, like late summer baseball, competing for the NL East crown, and he comes out, it is going to be electric. The place is going to blow up. But yeah, like, even with McCann, like, he's going to be our 8 hitter. Him or Nito, whoever they are, is going to be hitting 8th when this team's at full strength. I would like to see him hit better, but he comes up in the 8 spot right before the pitcher. He's not there to be doing the heavy lifting. So, like, it's a problem. It's something that we can complain about now because why not? We have to talk about it. But really, at the end of the day, that's not his main, purpose of being on this team, is not to drive in runs like a Conforto or Dom Smith.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. And Joe, I know that we're running a little bit on time. So is there any kind of more final statements you want to give before we get out of here? Because I know I don't want to hang you up too long.
Yeah, no worries. No, good win. I'm excited for Harvey Day tomorrow. I'm rooting for him. Not tomorrow specifically, but I've been rooting for him. I mean, sorry.
We'll all be in attendance. So we'll hopefully bring good luck to him.
I want to see him do well generally. But tomorrow, let's just 4 runs. How's that? 4 runs.
10.
You want 10?
Yeah, put him in a grave. I don't care.
No, but bring the closer back out. We'll get a few more runs off that disc ball. But no, just a good win. I can't say I was confident it was going to happen. And when Pilar hit the home run that went foul,
totally forgot about that.
When that happened, I was just like, game over. That's it. It's the Mets. They, when we're going to talk after the game, be like, oh, damn. If that home run was 5 inches to the right, then it'd be having a different conversation. Instead, they lost. But no, a good win. They're still in first place, and as imperfect as they're playing, and we've broken down everything that's kind of not going right. We have to still remember they're in first place.
6-game win streak.
Yeah,
6-game win streak. And part of that is the NL East hasn't been so hot, but hey, that's the division they're in. And all you can do is keep it afloat. And these guys are going to come back. You're going to get DeGrom back, hopefully in short order. Hopefully only misses 1 start. That's what it seems like. Syndergaard's working his way back. He's looking good in rehab. Cookie Carrasco should come back. Like once these reinforcements come, I thought the Mets were a mid-90s win team coming in, and there's no reason to think that they still can't be. They're right where they need to be, and hopefully they just keep it up. And once you get everybody back, get the whole band together, you'll be in really fantastic shape, and it's going to be a very, very fun summer in Queens.
Oh, 100%. I can't wait to see Cookie. We haven't even seen Cookie. I saw him in the dugout. I'm like, oh, this guy's alive. That's awesome. We're going to see him hopefully soon by the end of the month. Then we're going to see Thor, Lugo. They're all going to kind of come around at the same time. I'm excited to talk to you, especially about that when the time comes. So, Joe, again, thanks so much for chiming in. I hope to have you back here whenever you'd like to do more post-game streams like this. So, Joe, I appreciate you. Let us know where we can find you on everything outside of what people already know.
Yeah, you got it, gentlemen. It was fun to talk with everyone. I haven't seen Mark in a while, and I haven't met James before, I don't think. So glad to talk to you guys. But yeah, catch me on Twitter at PSL to Flushing. Also follow That's So Mets Pod on Twitter, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. It's all there. And yeah, we do a weekly show, and we're going to be putting out some new content, maybe infringing on your YouTube grounds. We'll see soon. But just check out all my work there. And then, of course, my writing at SNY.TV. And some cool stuff coming there down the pike soon. So, yeah, whole bunch of stuff going on, and look forward to being back with you, my friend.
Awesome. Thank you again, Joe. Talk to you soon, buddy.
All right, gentlemen. Take care.
Yeah, man.
All right, guys. So now that it's just the 3 of us, I want to talk about, speaking of 3, let's talk about our 3 stars of the night, shall we? So, Mark, I'll start with you. Who are your 3 stars of the night for the Mets from 3 to 1, and give us your reasons why?
All right, number 1, we're gonna go with Pat Mazeika. The man just can't be beat. You can get him out, but he will score a run. He will get a run in, and that's all that matters with Pat Mazeika. So he's my number 1 star. Number 2, Jonathan VR. He has just been a completely different player than what we saw in Miami. He's playing good baseball, and he just didn't play good baseball in Miami last year. It was pretty horrible. So I'm glad to see that he has gotten a little bit more under control, using his head a little bit more and playing good baseball for us. And then number 3, I think I'm gonna go with. I think you just got to go Stroman. Stroman gave us a shot today. He still pitched well, even though he didn't have his greatest or best stuff. Gave us 6 strong innings, 1 run. If you give up 1 run in 6 innings and you're the New York Mets and you don't win, that's not on the pitcher. He did his job. You got to hit. So those would be my 3.
Yeah, Mark took all 3 of my stars of the game, so I'm going to try and get creative here. I'm going to give one of my stars of the game to, I'm going to give it to Dom. I think Dom got the biggest hit in the game, if you want to use the word hit. That was big time. I'm going to give another star to Francisco Lindor for continuing to play great defense. And I love that at-bat that he took I think it was the 5th inning after there were a couple, I think Peraza got the leadoff single, and Lindor took an outside pitch to right field from the right side, something he has not done all year. And that's the mark of a hitter that's really going well. And my third star of the game, this is going to be way out of left field because really this is the 6th star of the game. I'm going to give it to Trevor May, who was our Mets'd Up Met of the Month. After giving up a leadoff triple when your center fielder almost perished against the center field wall, he locked in and struck out 2 guys and wouldn't have given up a run if it wasn't for that pesky Freddie Galvis laying down a perfect bunt. So he really gutted that inning out. And I think he's an unsung hero of this game.
Oh, that's a great pick. Yeah, I saw you guys for your Mets'd Up pick of the month. I love that. That's a great thing you guys are doing. So for my 3, I'm going to start off with number 3. We're going to go with actually Kevin Pillar. And the reason for that is Pillar has just been so solid, I think, really the past week plus, 2 weeks really. But tonight what stood out was him getting this close to getting that game-tying home run. Normally that throws off a hitter, especially in a clutch moment like that in the 9th. To really not come back and still make an at-bat, he can continue to make an at-bat and ended up getting a single to that left side to really start things off. That is huge in my mind, so he gets a 3rd star. Then the 2nd star, Patrick Mazeika, the guy he doesn't even need to get a single to get the walk-off. You have to give it to him, even with how well Jonathan VR made that happen with the awesome run scored there. But then my 1st star, I'm going to give it to Marcus Stroman because I know that you said it wasn't maybe Stroh's most stellar night. Every time I looked up, I felt like he was just 3 up, 3 down. I know that he gave up a couple singles here or there, had a walk or so, but I thought Stroman was on the money. And for a guy in his contract year and really doing his best impression to be another possible Cy Young candidate early in the season along with DeGrom, I think that's huge. Stroh has been infectious. He's really helping out this team a lot, and he's just stepping up. I thought Stroman had a solid chance to have maybe, if you could have a 3.5 ERA or lower, a sub-3 ERA, that's fantastic. But this guy's right around a 2 ERA. And that's really only because of the run that was ended up given up by Aaron Aloop because that was called for on him. So who knows what would happen if he's staying there, but Marcus Stroman has to be my number 1. And yeah, Kevin Pillar, though, the Pillar and Alar, just both of them combined, they have been such a dynamic duo. And I cannot wait to see some dope t-shirts made out of them real soon.
Dude, definitely. VR had a great quote last week after he had that crazy play where he went from 1st to 3rd on the random ground ball. Something like that. I think it was a week or 2 weeks ago.
And then he scored, right, against the Phillies?
Yeah, he scored. I think he took home. That Glaber scored. I think he only got the 3rd.
Okay.
But one of the reporters after the game was like, what do you that's great heads-up baseball by you, getting 1st to 3rd in a ground ball. What do you attribute that to? And he goes, I'm not afraid to play baseball. And I think both those guys, VR and Pillar, exemplify that attitude. Pillar, just dove headfirst into Malcolm Ford the last week. He's still rocking the scar under his eye, which is pretty badass. These guys just love playing. They're here to play baseball. It's awesome.
And when you're a guy coming off the bench, you definitely can't come off timid and be patient and that. And they haven't been necessarily coming off the bench, of course, because of the injuries. But the little bit of VR gives our team a little bit more of an edge offensively, especially on the base path, just because he has the possibility to be fast, take that extra base. He puts pressure on the defense, and he did that tonight. Shockingly, Trey Mancini, it seemed like was sleeping a little bit and almost forgot that VR was on 3rd base because he got in just kind of lollygagged it home. And I mean, when it was hit, I was like, he's out at the plate. No way. And I was like, he's safe. Look, he did it. Oh my God. I don't know how many players on the Mets can score on that besides VR.
No, definitely not.
He was phenomenal. And I think what I want to give credit to just this bench as a whole, because as I was alluding to earlier, these are the exact kind of benches a team needs to have a winning championship caliber, whether you're just making playoffs, have a short, deep run, or if you at all have World Series aspirations, which is definitely far-fetched right now. But if you do, you need a bench with guys that are basically capable starters any given night. And that's what VR is. And Pillar. VR, again, he's not 3rd baseman from his first error of 3 that we've seen over the past week, which was a side armor because he's still really honed in with being a shortstop. He's still making up for it one way or another with the bat or just with great base running. And Pillar too. I mean, what Pillar has done easily for the past week and a half, 2 weeks has been incredible. Had a terrible start to the season. Everyone was griping on, but people forget Kevin Pillar has been a starter for basically his whole career. Now you're asking him, still really much in his prime, coming off of a great hitting 2020 campaign with both the Red Sox and the Rockies, to now be not an everyday starter, to come in only when it's really needed. So for him to finally get in a groove with these more at-bats, I think that's been clutch. And I'm just so excited to see what is going to happen with the Mets, with their future, because injuries inevitably come. We saw that with Nemo. We saw it with JD. We saw it with Mcneil now. And same thing with Almora. And shout out Almora. He said on Twitter, I believe, we're the last 10 minutes, I caught that. That he actually caught the ball. I thought that was funny. So shout out to you, Albert. But it's just awesome to see that this bench is coming in clutch, because if they do, in fact, want to go anywhere this year, it starts with them.
Dude,
the bench is something that me and James always talked about. You go back to the 2015 team, Kelly Johnson, Juan Uribe, even having a guy like Wilmer Flores that was on the bench for a little bit. They had quality, capable players so that if you do need to use them, you're not completely, I don't want to like, you're not killed. You're not destroyed by it. It's not like a huge problem. Yes, you would prefer Brandon Nimmo to be playing every day, but having Pilar be there to fill the gap in a 10-day IL stint, it's not the worst end of the world.
It definitely, and it shows the competence of this front office compared to the last regime that was in there. Because the 2015 team and this team were both run by the same gentleman, Sandy Alderson, and Brody Van Wagenen just grossly underestimated the amount of players a Major League Baseball season demanded of. And we never, ever had depth these last couple of years. And now we have three guys deep at basically every single position who can play Major League Baseball, that's changing everything.
Like even Peraza was like the fact that he was hanging out in AAA. He wasn't even a part of the bench. Get to call him up. He's probably going to get some at bats at least tomorrow, I would think, because of Mcneil. He's a guy who, like, on the Reds, I think had like a 200 hit season one year. Like he pushed
2020 1 year.
Yeah, he's a capable, very good baseball player, especially like in a vacuum. If you're going to play him over a 162 on this Mets team, yes, of course, I don't want him out there every day. But coming off the bench or being the guy to replace someone who gets hurt, he puts the ball in play. He's a scrappy little player. He's quick on the base paths. There's a lot worse players that we've seen come out for the Mets and play the field recently than Jose Peraza.
Tons.
Absolutely. And Peraza was such a sneaky pickup in the offseason too. I think, Mark, when we were doing when we did the video on my channel on recapping the offseason, when I saw the Mets picked up Peraza, I'm like, when the hell did they do this? I was like, this was such a sneaky good move, just adding more infield depth. A guy that very well could still be a starter on, I would say, more bottom feeders in the league right now, but still is capable of being an everyday player. So to not even have him on your bench basically until injuries arise, that's just a phenomenal. That's just depth. Same thing with the starting rotation now that Jacob deGrom, as we know, is on the 10-day IL, which was such a smart move. I was saying this, just give the guy rest. If there's one guy that you shouldn't be pushing at all, even at this point in the season, it is in fact Jake. So I'm glad that they have him on the 10-day IL, just rest up. And look, the biggest worry that we had going, especially in the Diamondback series, was the bullpen. Like, how would they fare when you have guys where you're going to basically have 2 bullpen games out of the 3? And everyone, like Tommy Hunter, like, who the hell is this guy? He just steps up 4 scoreless innings. Like, this guy's been amazing. Lucchesi was serviceable. So in a nutshell, I just want to kind of segue here and just ask your quick thoughts further on the bullpen, because it has been rock solid for the Mets all season. And going into the year, I think we were all in agreement this was the biggest issue for the Mets, not just from a defensive side of things with the outfield and third base. It was the bullpen. How was Jeurys Familia going to do? We had absolutely no clue. He has a 0.8 something ERA right now. Same thing with a lot of the other guys that were going on. It's mind-boggling to me, and that's where you got to give credit to guys like Rojas. Same thing with Hefner, especially, and McCann and Nito. All of them are a great supporting cast. But Mark, starting with you, what is your stance here on this bullpen, and what makes it so good this early into the season?
They've just been attacking the zone. Like, we've seen the Mets bullpen in the past, like, have issues with getting strikes. And that's even been a guy like Familia. That's been a problem for him. He hasn't been able to throw strikes. Granted, he's still going to walk a ton of guys. His pitches just simply move too much sometimes. He doesn't even understand where they're going. But to get him under control like they have, to see Trevor May just continue to be sick. Diaz is the player that we finally traded for. Like, I'm comfortable in watching Edwin Diaz pitch now. He's going to blow a game. It's going to happen at some point, but I'm so comfortable watching him pitch. It's no longer the Ed lose, it's Ed win. Even a guy like Jacob Barnes, who stunk at the beginning of the year, has looked good recently. Like, every single player has shown improvements in the kind of quality of pitcher that they are and the stuff. And throughout the year, the bullpen no longer makes me quiver. I'm like, yes, the bullpen's here. Let's do it. Let's lock it down.
I've been in Mark's ear about Jeremy Hefner for 18 months, probably since we brought the guy in, and you cannot understate the improvements that he's created inside this bullpen, just inside the Mets pitching staff in general. He does this magical thing where every single pitcher on the teams he coaches just gains a mile an hour, which that shouldn't even be allowed. That's ridiculous. And every single guy on his team is throwing harder. They're looking more confident. They're more aggressive, as Mark said, attacking the zone. We're getting competent innings out of Jacob Barnes. Tommy Hunter hasn't given up a hit this year. Mark's boy, Tommy Hunter.
Tommy Hunter, my guy. I love him.
Tommy Hunter, first round pick like 15 years ago from the Texas Rangers, came out of nowhere and is consistent with the Mets. Like, we are now in the echelon of one of these teams who we can make something out of nothing. which when you're going over the course of a 162 game major league season, when you're able to do things like that, like the Rays are the best example of this. They pulled Nick Anderson literally out of their ass and he became one of the best relievers in baseball. The Dodgers have a parade of pitchers who come in game after game after game after game and are great. The Yankees have done this the last couple of years, turning Tommy Kahnle from an average guy to one of the best relievers in baseball. The Mets are now in that category of organizations where they're smart, they're cunning, they're agile, and they are able to take guys who other teams don't want and turn them into useful pieces.
James, you literally took the words out of my mouth. I'm thinking Tampa Bay Rays the entire time because this really brings me back to the offseason with a lot of these pickups and just adding this depth. And one guy that stands out to me, which we will, I think, see at some point during the season in the bullpen, is Sam McWilliams. I know, Mark, we talked about him quite a bit. McWilliams was a really coveted guy who, when you look at the numbers, there's not a whole lot there. The guy's like 6'8", I believe. He's massive, can throw the heater, but he struggled with his command quite a bit, and he's a guy that was in the Rays organization. So the Mets jump on him, give him a major league contract for 1 year. And I think that was a great idea, testament to what we could expect with this team, taking advantage of what is maybe forgotten goods or just taken away too soon from opposing teams and make them into something better. They have done that with their bullpen. Jeremy Hefner, I've been raving about him like you, James, since the Mets acquired him. I thought a guy who's freshly coming out of being an MLB caliber pitcher was with the Mets, as we know, had a lot of his time with the Twins. He knows Trevor May on the back of his hand. I was like, I love that connection. You need a guy that's younger, like Rojas in a sense, but actually has the experience from a player standpoint, and he's analytically driven. You need both of them. I think analytics are a great part of the game, but you can't have too much. Kind of like how the Rays maybe overdid it a little bit in the World Series, as we know, but they're great for pregame prep and sometimes in-game situation, but you need the eye test. You need the overall feel of emotions towards the spirals that is an in-game situation. The Mets are starting to balance both of them, and they are going to go places, and it's definitely going to be in part with that. That bullpen is going to continue to thrive. It's great knowing that the Mets very well, for multiple years on end now, could either bring homegrown talent or just guys that they pick up as, free agents for simply slim to none that they bring into a stud. It's great not having to maybe worry about a Dylan Betances where you have to keep him in the bullpen given that contract of $6 million. He's never pitching a game with the Mets again.
No,
I highly doubt it.
He's
and
done.
Familia has been a blessing in disguise, but let's not take away the contract that he's on. The Mets don't need to ball out every single offseason now in order to try to acquire a big name reliever while hurting other parts of the lineup. Now they can go for the smaller name guys that you don't really think about, but the analytics will show there's definitely a clear direction. Oh, maybe they just need to work on their slider a little bit more. Maybe they just need help advancing like Trevor May. The main reason why Trevor May is having great success this year is his changeup. He's finally gained more movement on that thing, and that has been a huge part to why he's been so dominant this year that he hasn't been nearly as comfortable with in the past. And that is all to Jeremy Hefner, Rojas, and everyone, like I said. That, in my mind, is what makes his bullpen such an X factor. And I'm pleasantly surprised. I'm excited to see what they're going to do for the remainder of the year in that category.
How crazy is it that we haven't even seen Lugo pitch yet? Like,
I know. That's crazy.
Arguably our best reliever possibly hasn't even touched the field yet. Like, that's insane.
Definitely. It even makes me more excited about his return because the Mets used to use Lugo as like the last resort to try and win games. And now you're going to be able to deploy him as like a weapon, kind of the way that we've seen the Reds deploy TJ Antone so far this season. So he's going to be able to come in any inning we want and now that we have a competent back into the bullpen between Castro, May, and Diaz, we know that can get through the end of games. If someone's struggling in the third, fourth, fifth inning, say a Peterson, a Stroman, a Walker, Lugo can come in and kind of bridge you to the high leverage guys who we now know and we trust, which it adds such a new dimension to this team's bullpen that we have never been able to see.
No, the fact that with Lugo, he would go multiple innings sometimes, and he never really seemed to pitch 2 days in a row. He fits that perfectly as the guy who could bridge the gap. Or let's say they don't even need to do that. You could throw him in the 7th, you could throw him in the 8th, you could throw him in the 9th. You have no problem with him ever coming into the game because he is so good.
Yeah. I mean, Lugo, I can't get over that curve, man. It's nuts every single time. So me and my buddy, who I'm going to be going to the game, the Mets game tomorrow, we've been up until now, because we're Xbox boys. I'm sorry if that offends you. We've been playing MLB 2K13 for the longest time. And I've been using my create your own Seth Lugo, just destroying him in every situation. So to have Lugo back is going to be so very sweet for that reasoning as well. But I'm excited for him. I'm excited for I'm excited for the whole pitching staff as a whole. Because as Joe was saying, Cookie Carrasco, we haven't even seen anything of this guy in the NL yet, when in reality he's pretty damn good. He was hitting 97 in his last simulated game for the Mets. That's crazy. And we're going to see now Thor back. it's mind-boggling knowing how much better this Mets team is going to get throughout the season. And that isn't including, possibly trade deadline acquisitions. Like, I know everyone was myself included, was purposely overreacting to Chris Bryant being pulled from today's game when in reality he just had an illness. But just talking about the Mets are going to be aggressive this season. I do think that they are going to add towards the deadline. And I don't know. I think the Mets are going to be sneaky. I predicted them to win the division this year. I thought between them and the Braves, obviously, I went with the Mets by a couple games. And I think for the Mets to be now 4 games above 500 with an offense that really outside of a couple guys is pretty damn depleted, even consistently. Like Mcneil's not hitting. Conforto has been hitting lately, but he had a slow start to the year. Lindor is finally starting to hitting, but it's only been for like a week out of this entire season so far. And all these other guys, Dom Smith hasn't been consistent. So basically every single guy in this lineup has yet to really click on all full cylinders. So just wait until they finally get in that groove together. Like, I want to ask you guys too, before we get out of here, and I want to ask you your stances on tomorrow's game, because I know you'll be attending too. What is kind of your outlook on the remainder of the season for the Mets, and how do you think that they will execute things once everyone is kind of afloat in the same wavelength, pitching and hitting, if that's even possible?
Dude, this team is not even playing good baseball, and we're in first place at 17-13. Like, we are debatably or arguably playing bad baseball. There's a world where you can say this team's not playing well, and we're in first place. That's all I need to hear. This is essentially the floor for us, as James brought up earlier. Like, our floor just keeps getting higher and higher. Our floor is first place. Holy shit, where do we go from here? Only up. I'm excited. I can't wait to see what happens.
I think that the series against the Cardinals tells us a lot about where this team can head throughout the season. We played that game with objectively the 4 weakest starting pitchers on our roster at full health, which is crazy to think about because Stroman is technically, I would say, the 4 behind DeGrom, Thor, and Carrasco, even as good as he's been this season. And the Cardinals right now, I think most people would tell you they're the 3rd best team in the National League. And we gutted out a split in a 4-game series against them as we played our worst baseball of the season, and they were at full health playing their best. Of course, we didn't play Flaherty, sure, but they were in the midst of a 6-game winning streak before we got to them. This team can go toe-to-toe at full health with anyone in the National League, anyone in the American League too, because the American League sucks. I have no issue saying that whatsoever. We have weapons up and down this bullpen, up and down this rotation, up and down this lineup. We have star power. We have depth. We have moxie now that we have Pilar and VR. We got some moxie, I'll say it. We have everything. I am immensely confident in the Mets moving forward.
Yeah, me too. And it's bittersweet. Like, for me personally, I know I'm not as seasoned of a Mets fan as you guys are. I've been a Mets fan my whole life, but I've been a casual really just because I didn't love baseball until, ironically, the 2015 season. And no, it wasn't bandwagon or anything. Here's why. So my cousin, who's a big Mets fan, halfway through the season, I was wearing the summer, he tells me, Tyler, you got to watch the series against the Nationals. I'm like, why? I'm like, I'm really not all that interested in baseball at this point in my life. And he's like, please watch it, because if the Mets win the series, then they are leading the division for the first time in a while. I'm like, okay, I watched the series. Rest is history. Yoenis Cespedes, that guy's kind of good, at least during that time. They go off the Flores situation, all that. I know that it fell short in the end, but that is really what started me following every single year, every game for 6 years. And I've never felt so comfortable about a Mets club during my fandom, at least. Like, this doesn't even compare. Like, 2015 was a wild ride. They had great pitching. The offense, though, was lucky Daniel Murphy decided to be a god in playoffs. This team, on paper, once they are all clicking, it doesn't even get remotely close to any. You could definitely argue this can be better than the 2006 team too, and that's saying a lot.
Yeah, the Mets 2015 team went to the World Series basically against all odds. We played the entire season without a shortstop.
Yeah,
which is just unbelievable. This team would beat that team in 5 games. Like, it wouldn't even be a contest. This team has everything. They really do.
I'm excited. Even tonight's game, I think this is a game that a bad team loses, or a good team wins, I should say. I shouldn't say a bad team loses. A good team wins tonight's game. They scrapped it out. They got to Cesar Valdez, who stinks. I will say that confidently. That guy's not good. And I hope, actually, I don't hope we see him, because that means the Orioles are winning. But hey, you want to throw him in the 5th inning tomorrow after Harvey gets shelled so we can get a few more runs out there? I would love to see that. Like, this Orioles team's not very good. Hopefully tomorrow we beat up on them, because something like this could help maybe get the gears going a little bit more on the offensive side.
So speaking of Harvey getting shelled, let's segue now to kind of wrap things up about tomorrow's game. I want to ask your thoughts on a preview. So Mark told me both you and James are going to be attending. I will too. So I hope to actually see you guys there. I'll be vlogging throughout the game as well. So that'll be a lot of fun. Definitely will be enjoying that one. But the Dark Knight returns for the first time since he was traded to the Reds. So what's your initial stance on that? are you excited? Like, what is your personal stance on Harvey? Because for me, at least, I am not the Mets fan that has experienced every single game of Harvey's greatness just because I was a casual all the time. I watched the reruns, but it wasn't the same. For me, Harvey, I have absolutely no issue with the guy. I wish him the best, but I'm not one of those guys that, we have Mets fans saying, oh, please bring him back in some type of role. I'm like, no, by any stretch of the imagination. Harvey, I think I unfortunately watched him in 2015 when he was rolling hot, and then everything trickled down after the World Series with his injuries and his personality. Everything just was a big ball for a disaster. And so I want to know your stances on Matt Harvey and what you think your reactions are going to be to see him back in Citi Field tomorrow.
I have no ill will towards Matt Harvey. He wasn't the nicest guy when he was a Met, but I don't wish bad on like anyone in the world. He needs to make a living. I want his family to be okay. Like, he needs to pitch, but I don't want Matt Harvey on the Mets ever again. The same way I don't want Wade Miley on the Mets ever again, just simply because they're both bad pitchers and we don't have room for bad pitchers anymore because we're a good team. I'm fine with him. I feel like he's going to get booed tomorrow, which kind of makes me feel bad.
Yeah, you think so?
If I was a betting man, I would bet that you hear a smattering of boos. I
think he's going to get a raucous ovation. I think they're going to put up a little thing on the board for him too. Like,
they should.
I think I'm going to clap for him.
I'm going to clap for him too. I was hoping you were going to clap for him. I was scared you were going to be a booer.
No. Listen, I don't have ill will against him. I just don't give a shit how he does this year. His performance to me this year is irrelevant. He's going to come into Queens tomorrow, and I hope we put 15 runs on him in 2 innings. He gets out of the game, and that's the end of the Matt Harvey talk. I'm just tired of hearing it because, as you said, Wardy, like, there's just people on Twitter and Mets fans that are dreaming of this scenario where Matt Harvey comes back to the Mets and helps lead us to our World Series victory. Like, no, if we have Matt Harvey on this Mets team, something has gone terribly wrong, because that means we have gone against every single statistic and piece of information that we could possibly have, because what he's doing right now is physically the absolute best he will ever pitch again. It's just not possible for him to be better. He's not going to all of a sudden start throwing 97 again. His slider is not going to be filthy. He got thoracic outlet. That no pitcher has really ever been good since getting thoracic outlet. It just completely screws you up. I don't have ill will on him. I just simply don't care because he's not a part of the Mets. There's nothing to worry about with him anymore. Hope we smack him around tomorrow. I'll give him a clap, but as soon as that first pitch comes, I'm booing him the rest of the game. Fuck Harvey.
No, I think that's very well put, Mark, because like my stance on it too, I assume that what's going to happen is in the beginning of the game, you're going to get a decent ovation. They're probably going to do something to hype him up and all that. But then say knowing Mets fashion, he gets a couple scoreless innings to start the game. Oh, the boos are just going to tower over. That's my assumption, at least. But I don't know. At the same time, it's like I have no clue what to expect with these Mets fans, because they're the same Mets fans that have had the audacity to boo Francisco Lindor early into the season. Michael Conforto, third game of the year. Give me a goddamn break. I'm sorry. That's all I've been dealing with fans. Some of you guys in the chat right now, I know who you are. So yeah, that's kind of my stance on the matter. I'm pumped though. Last time I saw Matt Harvey was, I believe it was against the Mariners. It had to have been 2016 in the outfield. It was an earlier game in the season. It was like raining. I was only wearing a jersey when I was an idiot. And that's when Keon Broxton was still on the team before he was cut. Mets lost that game. I was upset because that was like my second or third time in a row seeing Harvey. And I'm like, Jesus, please. I've only seen one good outing of him years ago. I think it was had to have been, maybe it was the 2015 or 2014 season. It was Subway Series against the Yanks, Sunday night baseball game in September. But yeah, I'm excited for tomorrow's game. I really am. I just hope that the Mets don't let Matt Harvey look like Cy Young, which they've done with plenty of other pitchers this season.
Definitely. And we have we're pitching against the Dark Knight, but we have our day man, Taijuan Walker, facing up against him. Bringing light against the darkness. Taijuan Walker, king of the day, master of the sun.
Fighter of the night, man.
Walker's coming off of, I would say, if not his best, easily one of his best outings in his entire career the other day. Like, he went 7 innings, only one hit ball, was phenomenal, had not 10 Ks, but close to. He was just rolling. And Walker, in my mind, has been one of the best offseason moves you could ask for. I mean, again, I'm on that deal, multi-year deal as well. If you look at the numbers, I know that people love comparing Trevor Bauer to literally everything right now, considering he didn't go to the Mets. But to see it's kind of a bang for your buck right now. Walker's a guy that still has the potential to really hit his peak in his career, and it will be with the New York Mets. And that's really satisfying to me.
Yeah, I'd still be pretty happy to have Trevor Bauer on this team.
Me too.
He's okay. He's a decent pitcher.
I'm not a Trevor Bauer hater like a lot of people are in the chat. I'm just saying, enjoy it while it lasts, because it probably won't last too long with him, say, quote unquote, struggling.
Yeah. I mean, the irony is, imagine where the Dodgers would be right now without Trevor Bauer. They would literally have fallen apart.
Yeah,
that's true. Yeah, no, they
Hold
dealt
that
with a
rotation
plethora of
together.
injuries. Justin May again hurt really sucks. That I will say that much.
yeah, but luckily for us, not really our problem. Mets are in first place, and we don't got to worry about what's going on with the Dodgers. Taijuan Walker, the day man, lead us to a win tomorrow. Let's put Matt Harvey 10 feet under the ground tomorrow.
Absolutely. So to get us out of here now, one pick. Who do you think is going to be the star of the game tomorrow for the Mets side of things? James, we'll start with you.
Michael Conforto. Michael Conforto is swinging a hot bat. I think tomorrow he finally gets one over the fence. He's been teasing us for a couple days now. He's going to put at least one ball out. I'm calling 2 RBIs for Michael Conforto tomorrow, however they come.
Mark?
I think that we're going to see Dom Smith. I think that hit today was big for him. Harvey's a little bit of a soft tosser too. I know it's not Cesar Valdez soft, but Harvey throws BP for a Major League Baseball player. Dom put a good swing. I want Dom to get some hits tomorrow for sure.
All right, I'm going to go with the man that's finally broken out lately, the guy on my back right now, Francisco Lindor. I'm going to stick with him. I think that he's going to have a strong game tomorrow. Hopefully jump on Harvey early, and then they can make the best of it. So with that being said, thank you all so much to everyone that's been chiming in. This was an awesome stream. Expect more post-game streams throughout the entirety of the season. We'll be giving you guys updates when they happen more. But Mark, James, thank you both so much for being part of this. I had an absolute blast. It was awesome meeting you too, especially James. So hope to see you guys tomorrow at the game, get featured in the vlog, all that good stuff. So before I get out of here, let us know where we can find you guys. But they all know by now where you guys are, but let them know.
Yeah, I'm G there had no range on Twitter. You can find me and Mark on the Mets'd Up Podcast. You can find my writing on Pitcher List. Not really any Mets stuff, but if anyone's into fantasy baseball or a little bit of gambling, I'm there most days. That's me.
And awesome. Then, me, GiraffeNeckMarc, Mets'd Up Podcast. That's my plug. Follow the podcast, listen to the podcast. Comes out every time a series ends. So you can expect it either super late that night or the next afternoon, morning. Mets'd Up Podcast. We'll have one out for you probably Thursday. You can expect one after the Orioles series.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I've been loving the podcast since you guys started. I wish you guys continued success on that. I'm looking forward to having you guys hopefully back on here real soon to do another post game, which will hopefully be a victory. We lucked out tonight, so I will take that heading into tomorrow's game. But it's now to get shut eye. So thank you all so much, Mets fans, for chiming in. Have a great night. Let's go Mets as always, baby. And I'll talk to you guys real soon.
Peace.
Yeah.